Fought in a Cold War in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. And Detective Bruce Willis is the last Boy Scout.
I followed him. It's not his fault.
I'm gonna kill you both.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to stand in line.
Bruce Willis and Damon Wayans star as a detective and former quarterback trying to stop a corrupt football team owner in The Last Boy Scout. One of the new holiday movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert, along with Steven Spielberg's Peter Pan story, Hook. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first movie is named The Last Boy Scout, and this is one of those movies that inspires actually a very uneasy mix of feelings. On the one hand, it is well made. On the other hand, it's amazingly violent and obscene. The movie stars Bruce Willis as a former Secret Serviceman who has now been reduced to acting as a bodyguard for a stripper, and he's not even very good at that since she's killed by a car bomb. The stripper's boyfriend, played by Damon Wayans, is a disgraced former pro football player who was thrown out of the league for gambling.
Looks like our evidence got blown up. I think we might have to get some more.
You just won't let go, huh? You're like a dog with a frisbee.
My girl's dead. The guys that did it up at Spago's eat chicken Marcella.
If Wayans seems sort of blasé there about his girlfriend who has just been killed, that's because this movie is hostile toward women from beginning to end. The only great relationships here are between buddies, like these two.
$650.
Yeah.
They're pants.
Yeah.
You wear them.
Yes.
They don't have like a TV in them or something?
Nope.
I am very old.
The plot line basically involves the 9 lives of these guys who are forever talking themselves out of tight spots as they uncover a plot to legalize gambling in pro football.
Slow and easy. Give it to Jake.
Oops.
You dumb bastard, you're gonna pay for that. Jake, open the trunk.
Bruce Willis has become a specialist in big-budget special effects movies like the Die Hard pictures and Hudson Hawk, and there's no shortage of expensive stunts in The Last Boy Scout. As I said before, this is a well-made action thriller, and it does indeed deliver the goods. But it also reaches some new lows in the unremitting, repetitive vileness of its language, and I was also rather disturbed by the character of the hero's 13-year-old daughter, played by Danielle Harris, who has a real eye-opening scene in which she and her father see which one knows the most dirty words. Later, she's kidnapped by the bad guys and used as a hostage. When RoboCop 2 came out, we were both disturbed by the use of a foul-mouthed little boy, but that movie was nothing compared to this one. I give The Last Boy Scout thumbs up for technique and basic action skill. It does work, but as a sign of the decay of public standards, it's pretty bad news.
Well, it is mean. There's a meanness to it. I think Bruce Willis wants to play a variation of his Die Hard character, but the Die Hard guy is an upbeat kind of guy and an innocent, sunny kind of guy who's thrown in this maelstrom of violence around him. Here it's participatory in some way. He's depressed. The football player is angry and bitter. And as they go through these things, that angry and bitter tone just colors all of the stuff. In addition, this script is well known in Hollywood for having cost a ton of dough, setting a record at the time. There are some very funny jokes in the picture, but they occur at a sort of a metronome level so that it's set up, joke, set up, joke. That pattern gets a little tiring after a while.
You know, it's amazing that in today's world, people would pay, I think, what was it, $1.5 million, $2 million, something like that.
Right.
Yeah, for these one-liners, which are basically the same kinds of things that are turned out for sitcoms, because the plot itself is Lethal Weapon.
Right.
You know, the two cops, their relationship, he isn't a cop, but nevertheless, the two guys, their relationship, the guy on the hill, it's right out of Lethal Weapon Part 2. This is not a very original screenplay, and yet, you know, how do you review this, Gene?
Well,
I mean, how did you feel? I sat there in the audience. It was working for the audience. They enjoyed it.
Well,
they had a good
I'm not going to
time.
review the. I'm not going to review the audience. It's very simple. My test is always, what would I say to a good friend? And my answer was that it's what I've been saying since I saw the picture to friends. Some cute lines, some good stunts, but nothing special. Not essential.
So what? Thumbs up or not?
Down. Okay, next movie. Our next film is Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. Probably the last film in the series with the original cast. I have a feeling it's all set up. There's going to be the new generation in number 7. When the film works best is when we simply see this familiar group of characters together in a series of close-ups. You know what? They like each other. We like them for that, and you can't fake that. The story this time, a Russian-American parable with Earth forces finally reaching out to the reeling, evil Klingon Empire. And the Star Trek crew reluctantly escorts them to a peace conference. But Captain Kirk objects strongly.
There is an historic opportunity here. Don't believe them. Don't trust them. They are dying. Let them die.
Kirk, you'll recall, lost a son in combat with the Klingons, but he swallows his anger and talks turkey dinner, that is, with the Klingon boss.
The undiscovered country. The future. The undiscovered country. Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 1. You have not experienced Shakespeare until you have read him in the original Klingon.
Naturally, trouble pops up when a Klingon ship is fired upon. The Klingons suspect it's Kirk's revenge and bring him to trial.
I offer into the record this excerpt from the captain's personal log.
I've never trusted Klingons, and I never will. I've never been able to forgive them for the death of my boy.
There are lots of nice sentiments in this story. Shakespeare is quoted liberally, and I'm sure the story is very important to Trekkies. For me, I didn't mind it a bit, which is more than I can say about a lot of the pictures in this series. I've kind of grown to like these characters in all their silly outfits. When the picture ends, and they have a close-up, 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 I like them.
And all the signatures of the cast coming across the screen. Of course, after 6 of these movies, you probably should know that it's Trekkers, not Trekkies,
You know
and
what?
that they really get offended when you make that mistake.
I know that it's Trekkers, and
you just deliberately thought you'd get it wrong.
I didn't. I actually said, you know what? They can't tell me what to call them.
Okay, so you call them Trekkies. Okay. I enjoyed the picture, too. And it's a strange thing because of these 6 movies. 1, 3, and 5 were bad. 2, 4, and 6 were good. It's maybe there shouldn't be a number 7 because on this track record it's not going to be a good one. But it does have that elegiac feeling of conclusion there. They've been around for a long time. They've been on television and in the movies together on the Enterprise for 25 years. They know each other. We know them. The parallels between the Klingons and the Russians are part of this thing that they always do where they find some contemporary political reference and put it into the future, and I enjoyed it on that basis. I really did.
It's a nice movie. Coming up next, Robert Duvall in Convicts, and later in the program, Hook, Steven Spielberg's new story about Peter Pan. He's grown up. He's a yuppie.
Mr. Hook, I want those kids out of that net in less than 1 minute, or you better get an attorney and hope to God he's better than me.
From 50 cents. And you said you'd pay me that on Christmas Eve, and that's today. And before that, you said you'd pay me...
Hold on. That's a scene from our next movie called Convicts, and this is a Christmas movie of sorts, I guess, about a very depressing Christmas on a decrepit southern plantation in 1902, where all the field work is done by convicts on loan from the state. The story is seen through the eyes of a young boy, played by Lucas Haas, who's been working 6 months in the farm store and now is determined to get his wages.
Well, Mr. Billy wants you to go into Harrison for Christmas.
Well, I won't leave until Mr. Sol gets back. He told me yesterday that he'd pay me today.
And he told you the day before that he'd paid you yesterday. Did he do it?
No.
That's Starletta Dupois is one of the several former slaves who still live on the plantation. She and her husband, played by James Earl Jones, actually run the place because of the increasing senility of its owner, played by Robert Duvall.
You ever had a woman?
No, sir.
Well, we're going to have to do something about that.
One of the best things in the movie is Duvall's performance. Playing an Alzheimer's victim, he faces a real challenge as an actor, portraying a character who could never quite remember what it was he meant to say.
Nobody out here now but you and me and Ben and Martha, the convicts, and the guards, and the overseer in Jackson.
Who the hell is Jack?
Convicts is based on a play by Horton Foote, who was teamed up with Robert Duvall before, most unforgettably in Tender Mercies. What we have here, though, is pretty unpromising material, probably better suited to a stage play than to a movie. It's another one of those stories where the wide-eyed young man learns about the realities of the world by observing the evils and weaknesses of his elders, and by the end of the film, he hasn't found out much that we and he probably didn't know before. The real only reason to see this movie is the excellence of Robert Duvall's work.
But the problem is, Roger, that it's I think that's what you're really saying, it stands apart from the rest of what's going on. No one can really intrude on this guy because he's an entity unto himself.
That's right.
He's cut off, and so as a result, you're watching this object cover center screen, and everything else is meaningless. And so, you're right. I just watched the performance, but I haven't watched a real movie, in my opinion.
Okay, coming up next, Steven Spielberg retells the Peter Pan story. Hook, coming up next.
We could make the little buggers love you. No, Smith. No little children love me.
On Great Ormond Street. You work with orphans. You taught me to read. You arranged for the adoption by my American parents, Hank and Jane Banny.
The diamond is a symbol of an...
How far back can you remember, Peter?
I remember the hospital on Great Ormond Street. You work with orphans. You taught me to read. You arranged for the adoption by my American parents, Hank and Jane Banny.
That's Robin Williams as a grown-up Peter Pan, who in Steven Spielberg's Hook has aged and turned into a work-obsessed yuppie. He's the kind of high-tech guy who sends an employee to tape his kid's Little League game, and the kid gets ticked off.
Jack, next season I'm coming to 6 games, I promise.
Be sure to buy enough videotape.
Hey, Jack. My word is my bond.
Yeah, junk bond.
What the hell's the matter with you? When are you going to stop acting like a child?
I am a child.
That's a very cute setup to the picture, but the film starts to fall apart as Peter is about to go off to Never Never Land to recapture his youth and recapture his children taken by Captain Hook. Before he goes off, Tinkerbell, Julia Roberts, pays him a visit and notices the aging process. She doesn't have any good scenes in this picture. She's too small to be appreciated most of the time.
Oh, it is you. It is. A big you. I guess it's not bad that you're big. You're always bigger than me. But now, maybe this means to be twice as much fun.
Oh, no. It's finally happened. I'm having a total nervous breakdown.
Come on, Peter, follow me and all will be well.
Oh, my God, where are we going?
Save your children, of course.
Dustin Hoffman isn't special as Captain Hook. There's little menace to his characterization. He's kidding with this performance, and we never believe, as a result, that Peter is in jeopardy.
Who are you?
I'm Peter Panning, attorney at law. Those are my children, and I want them back, please.
Those are your
children.
These are your children.
Yes, they are.
And you're
Peter.
You're Peter?
Yes.
You're Peter?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
You're Peter?
Yes. Is there an echo in here? Yes.
The Never Never Land scenes include long passages with Peter and a group of little lost boys who are a disappointment. They're as boring as a Saturday morning TV cartoon lineup.
That ain't Peter Pan. He's old. He's fat.
There is a little magic later on when Peter returns from his adventures, but it's too little, too late. Steven Spielberg, I'm afraid, may have grown up himself, because in this picture, I think he's so much better portraying adults now than he is kids. A surprising thumbs down, at least surprising to me based on my expectations for this picture on Hook.
And I give it thumbs down too. You know, there's a truism in Hollywood that at some point executives start making movies that are really their own life story. And here what you have is a guy who's very successful, surrounded by big business, but is told that he has to recapture his youth in order to be successful. And that may be the way that Steven Spielberg feels, and it may be the reason he made this story, which is unbelievably cumbersome in terms of explaining why an adult, Robin Williams, has to go back and become Peter Pan again, and then how he comes back after he's been Peter Pan. It's so complicated that you really have to ask, why didn't Spielberg just make Peter Pan? Then everybody would be happy.
You know, we interviewed him, I think it was a year and a half ago, and he had talked about a musical version of Peter Pan, and one thing this picture is really missing is music. I mean, I think that's an expectation that the audience has. Let me clarify what you're saying. You're saying that he needs a hit because his last couple pictures weren't big breakthroughs, and therefore, to be successful in some way, he has to go back and get that youthful quality that created E.T. and all
in a
those things.
sense. And you know, another thing that I really felt was disappointing here was Neverland itself.
That's the worst.
It looks like a really crummy movie set, and the colors are even wrong. It's all red and brown. It ought to be green. It's green and blue and magical and sparkling from the air.
Okay.
And you get there and it looks like they're in the middle of a drought, and it's all crowded with extras, and too many props and too much money, and it doesn't look good.
To those people who have said, but those pictures have been made, the cartoon series and Mary Martin and all that kind of stuff, I would say they could have made a modern Peter Pan. Make the Lost Boys a bunch of trainees in his corporate department. In other words, make it all modern in some way. I think by trying to do, I think what's happening here corporate-wise is hedging of bets. We'll do one story for the adults, and then we'll get a kid show audience picture in the middle with Neverland, and that part is a disaster.
It's pretty dreary. Coming up next, the same actress plays two women who are sort of the same and sort of not the same in The Double Life of Veronique. Right out and trying to explain all of the mysteries of our next movie, which is named The Double Life of Veronique, but I think that would be missing the point. This movie is not a puzzle to be solved. It's more dreamy and meditative and one of the most beautiful films of the year. It stars Irene Jacob as two women, a Polish woman named Veronika and a French woman named Veronique, who are both wonderful singers, who both look exactly the same, who were both born on the same day, and who both have a heart condition. The two women never meet, but they almost do, as Veronique takes Veronika's photograph during a demonstration in Krakow. The movie makes life seem like a mystery filled with clues, as when Veronique receives a mysterious package one day in the mail.
Ça doit être une boîte de cigares. Virginia, vite.
There's a moment during this scene when Veronique feels a momentary twinge of sadness, and the audience knows that something bad has happened to her spiritual twin in Poland.
C'est pas moi. Si, c'est toi. C'est pas mon manteau.
The Double Life of Veronique was directed by Krzysztof Kieślowski, one of the most exciting of the Polish directors, and it's a meditation on the strange nature of life, on how odd it is that our identities exist at all, and that each of us is so different, and yet perhaps maybe somewhere we all have sort of doubles somewhere else in time or space. It's a terrifying thought when I look at you. This is the kind of movie,
my friend.
This is the kind of movie that's terrific to look at because of the visual strategies and the subtlety of the acting. And then when you walk out of the theater, you debate its meaning, even though you know it really doesn't have one. Just a feeling.
You mean it does? It doesn't have just one explanation.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
No.
Well, let me tell you what mine is. Because I think that the whole idea of doppelgangers or doubles in life, when you see somebody that looks exactly like you, traditionally, psychologically, people are depressed.
Yeah.
Because it robs them of their special quality. When I saw this picture, and particularly when I saw it a second time, which I think is a good idea, and this is a tough picture to get, I think, I felt more elated. Because I think what this guy, and I think he's trying to say that to it. I think that's what the director's after in some way. That why not appreciate the joy of the spirit in another person and thereby feel it that it's also in yourself. So I think it's a really, it's actually a very important movie, shooting after some real big targets, and I liked it.
You know, another interesting thing about it, even though it's very hard for us to say exactly what it meant, it's not difficult to watch. I mean, scene by scene and shot by shot, he's a very good filmmaker and a very clear filmmaker, so it's quite clear what is happening. The only problem is at the end of the film to be able to say what it is that you think finally did happen, and that probably doesn't have an answer.
Coming up next, our video pick of the week, two better versions of the Peter Pan story. Steven Spielberg's Hook, if you and your kids want to enjoy the Peter Pan story this holiday season. Available at video stores are two better versions. Most obviously, the Disney animated cartoon feature with its songs, its flying sequences, and with a Never Never Land that really seems like a fun place to visit.
Following the leader, the leader, the leader. We're following the leader wherever he may go.
Just as enjoyable as Mary Martin's Peter Pan, a 1960 tape record of her hit 1954 Broadway musical.
I just sing for the leader. up and jolly, jolly, jolly. Send up a flare, I'll be there.
She's terrific. Both versions have the songs and the good fun in Never Never Land that I found missing in Hook. Now let's recap the movies we reviewed on this show. A split vote on The Last Boy Scout. Roger feels it works on an action level but deplores its bad taste. I found its cynicism depressing. Thumbs down from me. 2 thumbs up for Star Trek VI. An honorable farewell from a charming acting ensemble. 2 thumbs down for Horton Foote's Convicts. Although we both appreciated Robert Duvall's performance, it really doesn't add up to a movie. 2 thumbs down for Steven Spielberg's Hook, in which Never Never Land is a crushing bore. And finally, 2 thumbs up, way up, for The Double Life of Veronique, a beautiful musing on the nature of man. And that's a picture that you're going to have to seek out and find the holiday season. It's worth finding.
Okay, that's it for this week. Next time we'll be back with reviews of more of the big new holiday films, including Oliver Stone's JFK, starring Kevin Costner as an investigator into the Kennedy assassination, and also Steve Martin in a new comedy where we can't get used to being the father of the bride. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.
Here's a Christmas gift for your VCR. It's the 1992 edition of Roger Ebert's Movie Home Companion. Full-length reviews, interviews, and more. Experience Santa Fe cologne for her, for him, forever. And discover why it gets pretty hot in Santa Fe. For that special time in your child's life, bring home Walt Disney cartoon classics, Disney videos for your child's magic years. It's America's favorite jelly bean, Jelly Belly. Now appearing at theaters and video stores with good taste. Jelly Belly beans. Try them, you'll love them.